Hi everyone, it's Lindy on here from Pink Whisper Designs. Today I thought I'd show you a fun little Lawn Fawn birthday card, and I want to also show you how to use your frames in a little bit different way just to get some more use out of them. So let's go ahead and get started. So the stamps we're going to be using today are that little bear, the little strings, the larger balloon, that little fox, the mouse, and then the sentiments there as well. And these are from the Really High Five set. These are the stamps and dies. So now with the Strathmore Bristol Smooth 100-pound cardstock, I've placed that in my Misty stamp positioner along with all those stamps, and we're going to be using the VersaFine Onyx Black ink to do our stamping today. So I'm going to ink these up really well, and then I'm going to go ahead and stamp those. I'm going to stamp a couple more of those balloons and just one more of the little strings. Now I've grabbed my coordinating dies and I'm going to go ahead and tape those down with a little bit of purple tape, and I'm going to run those through my Sizzix Sidekick machine. So I've gone ahead and die cut all of those little pieces, and now we can start to color them in. So I'm using light pink oatmeal and dark oatmeal, and these are the Zig Clean Color Real Brush pens. And I'm starting with the pink on the cheeks and a little bit of pink in his ears. And then I'm taking the lighter oatmeal color and just kind of coloring in all over here. And then a little bit of the darker where I want to add a little bit of shading, and then cleaning off my blender pen, just making sure it's clean. I'm going to go ahead and blend out these colors. So I'm using a blender pen to do all of my blending here, and this is a Zig blender pen, but you can also use a water brush as well. Either way will work just fine. And again, you do want to make sure that if you want to remove color, you can come in with your brush there, grab the color, and then scribble it onto your scrap paper, and that'll just remove some of the color. I do tend to go lighter at first, and I can always add more color if I need to, especially when you're using some of the darker tones. It is a little bit easier to use a lighter hand at first, and then kind of, just add more if you need to. So you can see that I'm just going to continue blending that out. Now let's go ahead and do the little fox. And for this one, we're going to use brown, beige, and dark brown. Again, I'm going to add that lighter color. Then I'm going to add some of that brown. And this brown is really pretty. It has a little bit of a reddish tint to it. So it's perfect for coloring in this little fox. And I am going to come in a little bit later and add a little bit more shadow. I'm saving that dark brown for the last because, again, as I mentioned earlier, some of these darker shades you want to use very sparingly. So I'm just going to see how this looks first. And there you can see that I'm removing some color. So I just grab some color, scribble it on my scrap paper, and then I go back and forth until I get the amount of color removed that I wanted to. And now you can see I'm coming in with that dark brown, and I'm just going to start to add a little bit of that here and there. Just kind of cleaning it off as I go along here. I don't want too much of that. And then I am going to add a little bit of that on the tail as well. Just kind of that little shadow where his tail meets his body there. And then there you can see that a little bit of that does go a long way. So use it fairly sparingly. And now the next one we're going to do is the little mouse. And I'm putting some pink in the ears and on the cheeks and on his nose. And I'm going to use gray, brown, and light gray here. And I just think this little guy is so cute. I love this set of stamps because all these little images are kind of in motion. So they'd be cute on the little trampoline, or, you know, kind of like jumping up and down, or I don't know, I'm trying to come up with some other things that would be really cute to use these with. But I like the fact that they have a lot of movement to them because I think that gives you a lot of possibilities. So I'm adding a little bit of pink to the tummy as well, and then I'm adding a little gray over the top of that just to mute it out just a little bit. Now for the balloons, I did the same technique for all three. I'm using yellow and scarlet red to do this balloon here. So I'm just going to add the lighter color, then the darker color around just the two sides there. And then I just want to pull it in towards the center. So I'm pulling in from each side, and there I'm just removing some of the ink there. And I do want to keep it lightest right down the center of the balloon. So I'm adding a little bit more of the darker color here to the edges just to get a little more contrast. And then I'm going to go ahead and blend that out again. And again, I use the same technique for all of these. So the next one is May green and green. And then for the last one, I just used the wine red. And all I did here was kept adding layers of the wine red to the two sides and then blending it in until I got that right shade of red. So there you can see everything all colored in. Now for the card, we're going to cut a piece of Bristol Smooth cardstock at 7 inches by 8.5 inches. And this card will fit in a standard business size envelope. Now I'm flipping that little tab over so we can do our scoring. This is the We Are Memory Keepers trim and scoreboard, and I'm scoring that at 3.5. So the finished card will measure 3.5 by 8.5. And then I'm just using my bone folder to press out the crease there. So now I'm going to go ahead and create a cloudy background, and I'm using the Lawn Clipping Stencil, and I'm also using the Fish Tank ink pad. This is the mini ink pad, and I'm using my Picket Fence Studio brush. And this little ink pad comes from the set called Front Porch, but that color ink does also come in a full-size pad as well. And I will list that below, as well as all the other supplies down below and also on my blog. So now I'm just going to use this brush just to kind of lightly add some ink along that stencil line. And I don't want to go all the way up. I just want to go up just a little ways. And you can see that I'm blotting off the brush on my stencil first and then pulling just a little bit of that ink up. So I just want to remove a little bit of ink from my brush before I start to do my blending. And I worked my way all the way down the cardstock the same exact way, just turning the stencil and using all 4 sides of the stencil for just a variety of clouds. And there you can see I don't need to go all the way completely to the bottom because we are going to be covering that area there. So now you can see that up close, and you can see how pretty that fish tank ink is. So now using my Pixie Dust cardstock, which has this beautiful sparkle in it, I'm going to cut a panel that's 3.5 by 8.5. And that's going to cover the front of our card. So now I want to cut a frame out of this. I'm going to grab these dies here, and I'm going to grab this second largest one, and we're going to be die cutting it twice. This is the reverse stitch scallop rectangle windows die set. And in order to get a longer frame, what we're going to do is we're going to lay it down on the cardstock here and have an equal amount on the 2 sides and the top. And I'm going to tape that down with a little bit of purple tape. And you'll see here in a minute, I'll just adjust it slightly because you do want it straight when you do this. So I'm just going to straighten that out just a little bit there and tape it back down. Now when I put my cutting plate on top, I don't want to cut the whole thing. I just want to cut from the right side over. So I'm going to cut from that part of the plate towards the right. So I'm putting it on that second scallop on the frame, and then I'm going to place that plate down, just lining it up so it's nice and straight, and I'm running that through the die cutting machine. And again, that's just going to cut the cardstock to the right of that. So you can see that there. Now I do need to cut it again so we get a nice long rectangular frame. So I'm just going to flip that paper around, and I'm going to grab the first two scallops there, and I'm going to line up those two scallops on the frame with those two scallops on the cardstock, and it will kind of lock right into place. So I'm just going to make sure that it's positioned right into place there. Then I'm going to put a little bit of tape on here. Now I did move the tape slightly so you can see that I'm going to line those plates up again with that second scallop on the frame on both sides so that I'll know it's nice and straight. And again, we're going to be cutting the right side of the cardstock. So now you'll see that we just cut the rest of the frame and we have a nice long rectangular frame now. And now we have all that leftover cardstock there we can use for another project. So now this frame is very long and I do want to pop it up, but since it is so long, it felt a little bit not thick enough. So I decided I wanted to pop it up a little bit with some foam mounting tape. And this will also give it a little bit more substance. So I'm just cutting some strips of foam tape and I'm going to place it all over the back of this frame. Now I'm only going to remove the backing from the tape on the bottom part of the frame just to start off here. Then I'm going to line it up really well. And this will allow me a little time here to line up one side at a time. It just makes it a lot easier to make sure you have this positioned perfectly here. Then I'm going to remove the backing from the other side. And then I'll line up that as well. And then to get the tape there, I'm just going to get my pick tool or tweezers here. And I'll just pull out that last piece of backing. And then I can attach everything down here. And you can see that up close. So now using the cardstock in the canned pumpkin, I'm going to go ahead and cut a panel that's 7/8 of an inch by 3.5 inches. And now I'm going to grab this largest banner die from the Everyday Sentiment banners. And I'm going to place that on a piece of Bristol Smooth cardstock. I'm just taping that down with some purple tape, and I'm going to run that through my Sizzix Sidekick machine. And it is a little long for this machine, but don't worry, we don't need to cut both sides. I'm just going to cut, I really just want to make sure I get one end of this cut, because we're going to be running it through again just to shorten it up a little bit. So I'm running it through that first time. So we've got that one end cut. And again, I'm not too worried about the other side because we are going to shorten it up to fit on that little orange paper that we have. And so now I want to cut the banner. So I'm going to line up that banner die right over the top of the one that we already cut. I'm just trying to figure out about how long I want it to be. And I'm just lining that up. Then I'm going to tape that in place. And I'm going to run that through again, and that's just going to make it the length that we want it to be here. So now you'll see that's going to fit right on this panel. So now I want to do my stamping. So I'm going to grab the Happy Birthday. And that again is from the Really High 5 stamp set that we used before. So I'm going to go ahead and stamp the Happy Birthday first, and I want to get it as close to the bottom of this panel as I can. And then I'm going to go ahead and stamp the sentiment just above that says flying by to say, and that's going to go right above that. So now I'm going back to my little Picket Fence Studio brush and that same ink we used before, and I'm just going to go all the way around the edges of this little banner. And I'm going to leave the center part white. You can see that there. So that's going to sit right on top of this canned pumpkin panel. And I'm just going to glue that down with my glue tube, and I'm going to center that. And I'm just going to set that aside to dry. Once that's dry, I'm going to add a little bit of the Scotch foam mounting tape, and we're going to pop this up on the bottom part of the card. So I'm kind of centering this in that bottom section of the card here. So now we can add our little critters and our balloons. I'm going to go ahead and pop all of these items up. So I'm going to add that foam mounting tape to all of these pieces. I'm going to start with my little mouse. And he's kind of going to get tucked right down at the bottom here. A little bit of his tail will go underneath that frame, just a little bit. And don't press these down firmly yet. Just kind of lay them down. We're going to need to move them around a little bit as we start to build the scene here. So I'm just kind of laying these down, not pressing them down yet. You can see here that I need to move that fox just a little bit. And once you have the positioning down, then press them into place. Now for the little balloons, I'm going to attach the little strings to the balloons here once I determine what the layout's going to be. And we add that straight one to the green one in the center. I'm just adding a little glue at the bottom of the balloon and gluing that on. And then I'm going to add these two kind of curvy strings to the other two here. And we will be cutting these down just a little bit. So just let those dry. Once that's all set, you can go ahead and cut those down. I just cut off maybe like about an inch on each of these. And once I determine the placement, I can remove the backing, and then I'm going to put a little glue down at the bottom of that string. And I'm going to position all three of these in place. Now I did want it to look like the string, he was holding on to the string, so I'm going to take my Pitt Artist pen, and this is the 0.1 millimeter pen, which is a really nice fine tip. And I'm just going to add a little line across his wrist and then two little strings hanging down. And that'll make it look like he's holding on to all of those balloons. So now I'm going to take my Jelly Roll white gel pen and I'm going to add some highlights to my balloons and to all of my little critters. Now I did want to add some little sequins here. I just felt like it just needed a little something else. So these are the Seaside Holiday sequins. These are from 28 Lilac Lane. That's the name of the company. And you can see you get all these beautiful sequins in here. You get stars, you get some little seashells. But they had this nice little tint of orangey coral color to them. So I thought they went really well with this card. So I'm just going to determine where I want all my little sequins to be here. And then to glue these down, I'm going to be using my Ranger Multi-Medium Matte Glue to attach everything. And this is a glue that will dry clear, and it's really strong holding. It'll hold these plastic to the paper very easily. So I'm also going to use my Marvy Jewel Picker just to pick up these little gems so that I can place them down, and it makes it really easy. This little jewel picker has two different tips on it. One is a smaller tip and then a larger tip, and it's got a little sticky end on it, so it makes it really easy to pick up all these little jewels. I added a few there to the banner as well, and here you can see the completed card. And I just love that glittery paper for the frame. So think about some of your dies in a different way and see if you can extend them out to create some different shapes. And I did want to say, I hope you're all staying happy and healthy through this difficult time that we're going through. And if you did enjoy today's video, please hit the like button and subscribe. And don't forget to visit me at pinkwhisperdesigns.com. I'll see you soon. Take care. Bye-bye.